photographs used in its film strip were made in France by EBF cameramen while filming the Medieval Europe motion picture series. The authentic settings, costumes, and properties were selected with great care. Take plenty of time for discussion while you are looking at the pictures. In the year 1095 AD, Pope Urban II journeyed over the Alps from Rome to Clermont in central France to preside over a council of bishops. There, many things were discussed. The Church of Rome was beset with many problems. The Christian world was divided into many independent states, large and small, one warring against the other. Even the Church was divided into the Latin or Catholic and the Greek or Eastern Church. In the East, the Christian Byzantine Empire was threatened by the advancing Muslim Turks. The Pope read an urgent appeal from the Byzantine Emperor Alexius Comnenus for help against the invading Turks. What an opportunity to strengthen the Pope's power by leading all Christians into battle to liberate the Holy Land. Accordingly, at the Pope's invitation, many lords, knights, and peasants gathered at the Cathedral of Clermont to hear him speak. O race of Franks, chosen by God, let the deeds of your ancestors move and incite you to manly achievements. The accursed and unholy race of Turks destroys altars, tortures Christians, and spreads their blood upon altars. Enter upon the road to the Holy Sepulchre, wrest the land from the wicked race. Gird about you the badge of knighthood. Advance boldly as knights of Christ and rush quickly to recover the Holy Land. The Pope's speech swayed the crowd with great power. Even the peasants sensed that something great and important was happening. As he concluded, the crowd began shouting, "It is the will of God! It is the will of God! It is the will of God!" A storm of religious fervor rose which soon engulfed all Western Europe. Thus, the period of the Crusades to the Holy Land began. In all, during the next 200 years, there were 8 Crusades. The first one was probably the most important, and our story is mostly about it. Wandering monks, notably Peter the Hermit, aroused many peasants to follow them as soldiers of Christ. Little did they realize that without arms, money, or organization, their pilgrimage was doomed to failure. They never reached the Holy Land. They were massacred by the Turks soon after they passed the Bosporus. But the noblemen of France were cautious in planning their crusade. They knew it took men, money, and leadership. Hope of gaining new lands and treasures inspired some even to borrow money for soldiers and equipment. To raise needed money, some nobles granted free charters to towns under their protection in return for gold. Thus, the First Great Crusade began. The 4 main armies of the Western Knights reached Constantinople late in 1096. Certain leaders were sent to the Byzantine Emperor Alexius Comnenus to ask for ships to take them across the Bosporus, but the emperor was disturbed by the help the Pope had sent him. He had not expected ambitious noblemen as much interested in personal gain as in freeing his empire from the Turks. So he withheld ships until they pledged to hand over to him all liberated territories that had once belonged to his empire. From Constantinople, the Crusaders proceeded to Nicaea, which they captured for Emperor Alexius in 1097. After the liberation of Nicaea came a hazardous march across Asia Minor, including a great battle with the Turks. Finally, they reached Antioch and occupied the city, but the Turks surrounded them, cutting off supplies. One of the soldiers dreamed that the lance that pierced Christ's body lay buried at Antioch. He dug for it and found it. Inspired by the Holy Lance, the Crusaders routed the Turks, and here they founded the Principality of Antioch. After many months, in 1099, the crusading armies reached the Holy Land and Jerusalem. Naval vessels from Genoa and Pisa had supplied the food for the long march. The city was well protected by an army of Arabs from Egypt. The invaders were tired, and quarrels were frequent. Churchmen, including Peter the Hermit, acted as peacemakers. The leaders decided to bury their personal differences and to pray for the success of their venture. On July 8th, men of the church led the Crusaders on a march of penitence around the walls of Jerusalem. Then, inspired by the ceremony and prayers, an assault on the city was begun on the night of July 13th, 1099. The battle was savage and bloody, but on the next day the victory was complete for the Crusaders. Of those who survived, many returned home to spread the story of the Holy War. Others stayed on to protect the liberated land. Those who stayed established a system of feasts and observed feudal customs quite like those they had known back home. Gradually, the European knights living in a new land acquired new habits. Contact with learned Muslims, such as physicians and scientists, broke down barriers of intolerance. The Crusades also had great influence on life and customs in Western Europe. When the Crusaders returned, they brought with them new tastes and desires. Hours were spent listening to tales about the East, of beautiful buildings, rich merchants, sleek silks, exotic food. Men grew beards like Orientals and wore flowing robes. New kinds of merchandise appeared on the market. The growth of trade encouraged the development of towns. Less than 50 years after Jerusalem's capture, the next crusade started, and it was followed by others, none of them entirely unsuccessful. Much blood was spilled in the name of the cross. But though bloody, the Crusades did leave a positive imprint on Europe. With them, the narrow feudal life gave way to emerging national states, to an era of growing towns and a growing middle class. The end. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Cheers!